Good morning and welcome to the 12th International Congress of Medical Librarianship and the 2017 EAHIL workshop. You're all really welcome from all of the countries and continents that you've travelled from here to this morning, and I'm really excited and happy to welcome you all here to Dublin Castle and to Ireland. So we couldn't decide on a hashtag. We like diversity in Ireland, so we came up with two. Hashtag ICML Dub and EAHIL 2017. You'll see our Twitter wall, so please interact with us online, virtually. If you're not here in person, please interact with us, and we'll have space and time for some Q&A from some of our keynote speakers at the end of this session. So I'm Aoife Lawton. I am the chair of the International Programme Committee for this conference. I'm also the National Health Service Librarian working in the Health Service Executive in Dublin, Ireland. And I'm going to talk to you about visibility and vision as a way forward for our profession. And I'll be followed then by the president of EAHIL, Maurella Della, who sits here to my right. Then we'll hear from Dr. Hamish Sinclair of the Health Research Board, and the crafty librarian is in town and she's going to deliver the keynote lecture. So really looking forward to that. And you're very welcome, Michelle. So just to get started with some numbers, in terms of the International Programme Committee, we had representatives from 9 different countries and continents, and it was a real privilege to work with each of these librarians from all over the world, absolute experts in their field, some of whom I'll probably never meet in my lifetime, but I have met them virtually. And I would say to you, as information professionals and as a health librarians, that working on an international programme committee is a fantastic opportunity. 33 are the number of countries and continents represented here at this conference today. My last count, which was about 2 weeks ago, was 377 delegates, but I believe we're over the 400 mark. So I'm delighted with the outturn today. So today is actually a historic day for Ireland, for our country, and for our main theme of diversity. Later on today, Leo Varadkar will become the Taoiseach of Ireland. Taoiseach is Prime Minister, Head of State, and he's the 4th openly gay head of government in modern European history. He's also a doctor and son of an Indian immigrant, and he's just 38 years old. So how's that for diversity? Now moving on to my talk, I want to focus on two main areas that I think will help our profession move forward. One is visibility, and the other is vision. So to give you some background about the health service in Ireland, the HSE provides all of Ireland's public health services in hospitals and communities across the country. And the vision of the HSE is to have a healthier Ireland with a high-quality health service that is valued by everybody. There's a big emphasis at the moment on values and values in practice, and it has a hugely empowering effect on the health service employees and patients to feel that they are valued as workers and valued as patients in our service. The HSE is the biggest employer of health science librarians in Ireland. It's also the biggest employer in the state. It has an annual budget of €12 billion, and the population of Ireland is 4.6 million. So in terms of a health check in Ireland, how healthy are we? The latest Irish Health Survey 2015 from a good source, the Central Statistics Office in Ireland, tells us that we have some issues around binge drinking. Half of our population is overweight or obese. We have heavy usage of our primary care services. The top 3 health conditions are listed there on the slide. On the flip side, we are quite a positive race because 83% of us rate our health as good or very good. So we're either optimistic or in denial, I'm not sure which. So in terms of vision, there is a broad framework that was launched in 2013 and it's due to last until 2035, and it's called Healthy Ireland. And this is a whole society, whole system approach to healthcare. And the vision of Healthy Ireland is where everyone can enjoy physical and mental health and well-being to their full potential, where well-being is valued and supported at every level of society. And the responsibility is with each and every one of us in Ireland. It's not just the responsibility of the Department of Health or the HSE. It's everyone's responsibility. So there's an emphasis on prevention. So the reason I'm talking about vision, and I've given you the vision of the HSE and the whole society vision, is because as librarians, we need to align our vision with our parent organisations. And if you don't hear anything else I say today, that is my one key message. It's really important to make your vision meaningful to your parent organisation. So when I took over this new job and this brand new role, which is a leadership job in the HSE, responsible for the National Health Library and Knowledge Service within the HSE, I had to come up with a vision. So the vision is to deliver a National Health Library Service for a healthier Ireland. And you can see the theme of Healthy Ireland throughout the HSE, the Department of Health, and now our Health Library and Knowledge Service. And I started the job in December last year. So it's quite a huge opportunity, but also a challenge. And the first thing I decided to do was go and visit our nearest neighbours in England, because I know they're doing fantastic work over there. And I spent some time talking to the library heads at NHS Health Education England and Public Health England. And I was really overwhelmed with the amount of work and achievements that are going on there at the moment. But one thing I took home with me was the Million Decisions campaign that's been running in health education in England in conjunction with CILIP. And I think this is a really good, effective way of raising our visibility as a profession. So I brought that home to Ireland and translated it for an Irish audience. So now we have our own campaign, National Communications Campaign, Evidence-Informed Healthcare is our hashtag. And you may have seen me with this frame earlier on. So I've been going around with this frame, okay, and asking healthcare professionals, it's the wrong way around, okay, oops, thank you, Andrew. I've been asking health professionals to get into the frame and tell us why they think, or how they think, health librarians inform evidence-informed healthcare. How health librarians enable, that's the word, evidence-informed healthcare. So that's been a really positive experience and quite a motivational one, I think, for healthcare librarians. And it's not about us telling everybody how great we are, we're actually asking healthcare professionals to tell us what they think. And this is just a snapshot of the frame in action. We launched this at the HSE Leadership Masterclass in April this year, and you will see some of the HSE head librarians in the frame with some key healthcare professionals, key stakeholders in our health service. And I particularly like the one in the middle, which is one of our most experienced librarians, Jean Harrison, with the Director General of the Health Service Executive. And his comment, Tony O'Brien, says, "Without libraries, where would we be?" So I quite like that one. So a bit like the Irish weather, librarianship is changing. And none of us can afford to stand still and continue to do what we've always done. And I believe that diversity has become a necessity. And as Charles Darwin has said, it's not the strongest of the species that survived, nor the most intelligent, but the one that is most adaptable to change. And I think that's never been more true in our profession. So what is the problem? Well, one of the problems is I think we're losing visibility as a sector, and perhaps we're lacking vision. I think there is a widespread recognition of the need for the profession to assert its identity in a world where the future of physical libraries is being debated. and there's deep concern for the relevance of the health librarian in the changing health and technology environment. Professional library associations have a huge role to play in this, and in Australia they've been a driving force for change. The Health Library Association has a specialised postgraduate education programme, and they've updated their standards. The Medical Library Association in the States has recently updated their competencies, which is a really important piece of work for our whole profession. In Ireland, we had the Shelley report in 2013, which set out some key recommendations for our profession. And what about EAHIL? Does EAHIL have a vision for the profession? I know it has some really good objectives and mission. Does it have a vision? Where are we going in 5 years' time? Maybe something to think about. And I'm really just going to raise some questions for you today to get you thinking about your own circumstances and your own backgrounds. Do you think you're still carrying out the same tasks as you were 5 years ago? What do you think you might be working on 5 years from now? Are we still talking about the same things as we were 5 years ago? And 5 years ago, for those of you who attended EAHIL, it was in Belgium and in Brussels, and the theme was Health Information Without Frontiers. 5 years later, we're talking about diversity, inspiring, integrating, and innovating. So some of the themes, I suppose, remain the same, but the tools that we use have evolved, and the environments that we're all working in have certainly changed. What do you think we might be talking about 5 years from now? Well, it's important to look at the bigger picture, and I'm just curious how many people in the audience are wearing clothes that are connected to the internet, you know, those Fitbits? Show of hands? Yeah, could be roughly 10%. Certainly by 2022, it will be up there. So I think in order for us as a profession to get a vision for where we want to be, we can take some advice from the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt. And he said, start by asking what will be true in 5 years and work backwards. So in order for us to get a vision for our profession and to raise the visibility of what we do, we need to look at the changing environment in which we work. And in the corporate sector, they talk about megatrends, which are large, transformative global forces that define the future by having a far-reaching impact on business, economies, industries, societies, and individuals. And some of the megatrends that have been highlighted by the commercial industry are globalization 2.0. A new world order is emerging as economic power shifts to Asia. There's an environmental crisis. Leaders must embed sustainable cultures as critical natural resources run out. Individualism. Smart employers will design ways of working to suit individuals in order to retain talent. Digitization. In a climate of transparency, leaders must display high standards of integrity and sincerity. Demographic change. We have an aging population, and that means a shrinking workforce with global chronic skills shortages and a fierce war for talent. Technological convergence. The convergence of nano, bio, information and cognitive sciences will generate untold new product markets and make others obsolete. What about trends in librarianship? Well, we can have a look at some of the authors or the leaders in this field, one of which is John Eldridge, who I had the privilege of working with on the IPC. And in 2013, he wrote a chapter about trends in health librarianship, which he promised would last us for a decade. So one of the big trends is evidence-based library and information practice, active learning, innovative research collaborations, and emerging technical strategies. And more recently, last year, he spoke about the importance of integrating with our community of users. Then we had a series written in the Health Information and Libraries Journal edited by Jeanette Murphy, Senior Fellow at University College London. And the last issue of that series was published in February of this year, and it's well worth reading. So she took a snapshot of trends that were identified from 21 countries, 6 different regions. And the top 3 trends were establishing partnerships, the shift from print to digital collections, and financial pressures. And there's a new series coming out in the Health Information Libraries journals about new directions in health science libraries, with the first issue coming from Australia. So I think it's important to keep an eye on our own evidence. What about trends in healthcare? So this poll was taken at the Medical Library Association conference last year, and it asked what emerging trends in healthcare will affect your role most over the next 10 years. So personalised medicine was top. Health information technology to gather patient data and allow patient self-management. There's a big emphasis on that. Wellness programs that improve health and reduce medical costs, and value-conscious patients and consumers. So what I would say to you all is that you are not alone in your journey of establishing a vision for yourself or for our profession. You are sitting in a room full of global experts. The best health librarians are sitting right beside you, or you could be one of them. And I would urge you to inspire the people sitting beside you. Try something new, be innovative, and don't be afraid of failure. And integrate your services, or if you prefer the word resources, into the healthcare system. Thank you very much. Okay. So now I have the job of handing you over to the President of EAHIL. I'd like to welcome you to the stage.
Good morning to all of you. And dear colleagues, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you to this joint ICML EAHIL 2017 event in Dublin. First of all, I wish to thank the local organizing committee and the International Program Committee. They both made an excellent work ensuring the quality of this event and a high-level scientific program and a fully enjoyable set of social activity, which is also important. The period between June 12 and June 16 will be a very intense one for medical librarians. From the first 2 days devoted to continuing education courses, through plenary and parallel sessions, to interactive workshop, if the theme of the workshop maintains its promises, it will be inspiring and innovative, allowing the integration of medical librarians from all over the world. The topics of the workshop include leadership and values, integration, technology, education and learning, consumer health, research and evidence-based librarianship. A large choice of complementary activities, from exhibition to small group meetings, where the lively participation of delegates is a key factor, will contribute to the success of the event, while social activities will strengthen friendship and alliances among participants. I'm confident that the workshop will have a large and skilled participation of colleagues, both for the interest of the topics that will be discussed and the cultural and lively interest of the venue. Located in the refurbished Old Castle building, a thriving center for culture and home to a great arts tradition. It will be a wonderful opportunity to share exciting professional experiences and unforgettable moments of social life. And that's all. So welcome in Dublin and welcome to the ICML and to the EAHIL workshop.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce you now to Dr. Hamish Sinclair, who is the Director of the Health Information and Evidence at the Health Research Board here in Ireland. In his role, he has responsibility for the HRB's National Health Information Systems, Evidence Centre and National Drugs Library, which provide information and evidence to help policymakers and service providers make evidence-informed decisions. I really need to get you in the frame, Hamish. Before becoming director, he was the head of HRB's Drug Misuse Research Division and head of the Irish focal point for the European Monitoring Centre for Drugs and Drug Addiction. Prior to joining the HRB, he worked in the Department of Public Health and Primary Care in Trinity College Dublin. He holds an MSc and PhD from Trinity College Dublin, so welcome, Hamish.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to extend to you all a very warm welcome on behalf of the Health Research Board, your host for this conference. We are delighted to be able to host this conference in Dublin Castle. The castle grounds, and it's the castle and the grounds are quite magnificent. You'll find that there's lots of attractions, in particular the Chester Beatty Museum, which I think will appeal to a lot of you, and it's free for admission. And so I hope you will have the opportunity over the next 3 days to actually explore this great setting. Holding a conference on librarianship in a castle is oddly quite apt. Let me explain. When you came into the lower courtyard here, just in front of the conference centre, you may have noticed a round tower. This is the only surviving part of the original castle, which dates back to the 13th century. There were originally 4 round towers, the corners of the castle. There's only one left. This tower is called the Record Tower now. It's been called many names over the centuries, but in 1814 it was renamed the Record Tower because it held the public records of Ireland, our state papers, all the information that was relevant to the country. And I suppose what I'm really trying to say is that over the lifetime of a castle, which is many, many centuries, eventually some of them, or most of them, actually become repositories for our information. They are the safe haven, or they were the safe havens in troubled times. I suppose in a sense, as I said, it's quite apt that we're actually here in a castle. We're actually in a print room, the print works of the old Dublin Castle. And so I think it's, as I said, very apt. But we've come a long way from castles as a means to store information. The theme of your conference for the next 3 days is how health science librarianship in all its diversity is integrating, inspiring, and innovating practice. I'm very pleased that the HRB is associated with this conference, in particular the themes of integrating, inspiring, and innovating. For those of you who don't know, the Health Research Board funds health research, it manages health information systems, and it provides evidence for policy and practice. Our vision is healthy people through excellent research and applied knowledge. We share many common challenges. How do we get researchers to put their research outputs into open access repositories in a timely fashion? How do we make better use of existing published research, the grey literature, and the vast number of data collections we already have? And my favorite subject is how do we get research evidence into policy and practice? While we have many challenges, we also have successes. And I would like to highlight just a few of them for you that the HRB has been involved in recently. Like many countries, we have a large number of data resources in the health area. They range from routine collected administrative data, surveillance systems, disease registers, cohort or longitudinal studies, periodic surveys, and data collected for specific research studies, a vast quantity of data. This data represents our greatest national, or one of our greatest national assets. Our challenge, however, is to safely access this data, to store it, to share it, and to link it. Time and time again, researchers have told us that they can't access previously collected data. They cannot link existing data sets to create new information. And the worst case scenario is that they can't find the data because it no longer exists. In recognizing this challenge and the need to maximize the use of our national data sets, the Health Research Board published a report last year which put forward a set of proposals for enabling a data environment for health. The report sets out what is needed to overcome the current infrastructure deficits and also sets out the governance arrangements that are needed to safely access data, to store it, to share it, and to link it. We are in discussion with key national stakeholders in trying to move this agenda forward. It is a long road, but we have started the journey. In truth, Ireland is well behind the curve compared to other countries, and particularly some European countries. However, we hope to learn from your experiences as we move forward. Earlier this year, the Health Research Board hosted a FAR data stewardship workshop for open science. The aim of the workshop was to introduce the research community and librarians to the FAIR data stewardship, which aims to ensure that scientific data are findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, hence the acronym FAIR. The FAIR guiding principles for scientific data management and stewardship have been embraced by both the European Commission and the G20. Our hope is that Irish researchers and data managers will embrace these principles for the benefit of all. As of this year, the Health Research Board is participating in a 2-year opening publishing pilot using the F1000 service. The F1000 service is an open science publishing platform that is considered to be the forefront of new innovative practices in open publishing. It offers a suite of integrated services to assist scientists to publish findings quickly, easily, and responsibly. The drive to open publishing using the F1000 service is being led by the Wellcome Trust in the UK, which opened its publishing service last year. We welcome the opportunity to partner with the Wellcome Trust and other international research funders in this important initiative, and we look forward to actually presenting our results of how we get on with this. A tricky area, but one that's very important. Lastly, I would like to recount to you the case of the embedded librarian. And I apologize if that sounds a bit like a Sherlock Holmes story. The case of the embedded librarian. Many of you will be familiar with the concept of embedded librarians. The concept involves moving a librarian out of the traditional library setting and allowing them to work with, in partnership with other people, other groups who depend on that knowledge and experience. When I started in the Health Research Board some 15 years ago, I was tasked to oversee the establishment of a central repository for all Irish drug and alcohol research and information, a one-stop shop for researchers, policymakers, practitioners, and the general public. The driving force behind this initiative are my librarian colleagues, Brian Galvin and Louise Ferrara. They're in the audience today, but I won't ask you to stand up. Through their hard work and dedication, the Drugs Library was a success, offering traditional hard copy access and electronic access to published and non-published literature. But they didn't stop there. They offered courses on how to access research information and how to use this information, identifying best practice and communicating this to policymakers and practitioners. Over the last year or so, Ireland has been developing a new national drug strategy to inform the development of this strategy, my colleague Brian Galvin took the initiative of commissioning an evidence review on the interventions that work and don't work in the drugs area. Based on this work, Brian was asked by policymakers to join a writing group for the new strategy to ensure that that research evidence that he had collected was correctly used to support the actions within the strategy. Brian became an embedded librarian, helping not only to inform policy, but to help to write it. The new Irish drug strategy will be published this summer, and it will be all the better for it because of Brian's work. And what about Louise, Brian's library partner? While Louise started out in the drugs library, she was asked a few years ago to move into a new entity within the Health Research Board, and that was called the Evidence Centre. The Evidence Centre is a small team of researchers who review the existing literature to answer questions posed by policymakers in the Department of Health. As you might expect, policymakers want answers to their questions very quickly. They can't wait 2 years for their answers. So that team has to work very quickly in turning around the evidence for the policymakers. We've done so. We tried to get it down to about 6 months to do an evidence review. It's not a full systematic evidence review, but it's using methods which are quick and rapid and which we think informs the policymakers. Louise is a key element of that team. It's a bit like a lion's den, really. If you think about researchers, then you put in a librarian into that mix. But Louise is a key member of that. She's able to access that data very quickly for our researchers. She knows where the material is. She knows where the best sources is. She can access stuff that nobody else can. And she's part of that team, and she's also an author on many of the evidence reviews. Louise is an embedded librarian, helping to inform policy. Such is the importance of this role that we now in the Health Research Board, when we commission out an evidence review, and we do this occasionally, we ask other people to do reviews because we can't do them all. But one of the stipulations when we put out a tender for one of this work is that the research team who are bidding must have a librarian on their team. They must have an information specialist. This is crucial. We found this crucial in ourselves. It's crucial for other people to have that as part of the team. And lastly, I just want to say that when one of my colleagues said, knew that I was going to give an opening speech here as the host of this conference, he said, "Oh, Hamish, don't say anything in Irish. You'll get it wrong." They know that I'm not Irish. I'm actually Scottish. I'm not a native Irish speaker. But anyway, I'm not going to shy away from this challenge because I'm going to say something very simple. Céad míle fáilte, which roughly translates into 100,000 welcomes. I wish you all a successful and stimulating conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hamish. It was really enjoyable to hear you speaking so well of your librarians, Brian and Louise. And I think it's important for our profession to hear that type of positive affirmation. Next, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Michelle Kraft, who's the director at Cleveland Clinic's Floyd D. Loop Alumni Library. She's published several articles and book chapters and spoken on topics of medical librarianship, technology, and emerging roles for librarians. She has a very active professional presence on Twitter at Crafty, Facebook, and her blog, The Crafty Librarian. Michelle has held various leadership positions within national and state professional organisations. She was elected as board member of the Medical Library Association and later was elected and served as president of the MLA. She's a past member of the Library Advisory Board of the New England Journal of Medicine and Duty Enterprises Library Board of Advisors. She has an undergrad degree in English from St. Louis University and a master's degree in Library and Information Science from the University of Missouri, Columbia. So welcome, Michelle.
Good morning. Everybody had good breakfast and everything? Good. I'm going to be drinking a lot because when I speak, I get really thirsty. So I apologize. Hopefully I won't spill anything. And I also will try and slow my speaking down. When I get up here, I talk very fast, not quite as fast as the Irish, but I tend to go pretty quickly. And I realize you're not in my head, and you may not hear what I think you're hearing. So change is disruptive, and it's neither good nor bad. It's just change. It's there, and it's disruptive, and some change is so disruptive that it changes the way our society actually evolves. And to give you an example, we're going to go for a really big change right here. A supernova. That's about as big of a change as you can possibly get. Obviously, if you are close to that supernova, that's bad. However, the supernova distributes elements in the universe, and many of those elements are on Earth. And so these stars, when they go supernova, while if you're close to it, that change is clearly bad, but that actual event, that changed the way all of these planets and other entities get their minerals and elements. So everything is changing. However, let's go with a little more, less cosmic example. Something that we don't always think about is a huge technological change for our society. The light bulb. That is one of the biggest disruptive technologies that we have ever seen. And you're thinking, and it's such a disruptive technology, we today in 2017 don't even think of the light bulb as a technology. It just exists. It has always been around. We always, we flip up on the switch in the morning or at night. We don't even think, we use other things that we consider technology, but the light bulb is kind of what brought us all around this way. It changed the way we worked. Prior to having electric light, people came home at night and did not have a night shift. Now, I'm sure some of the people who don't like night shifts are probably unhappy about that. But the society is able to work at night. This means that we have a 24-hour workforce, essentially, globally. And that changed completely once with the light bulb. It changed the way we entertain. We now go out at night. We go visit people at night. We go drinking at night. We socialize at night, all because we're able to see where we're going. We have lights. We're able to see how things are. We are not afraid of traveling by night without seeing where we're going. We don't have to rely upon the moonlight and the stars to see where we're going, to go visit a friend. It's changed customs. My son, my 10-year-old son, was watching an old movie of A Christmas Carol. And the movie had these candles on the Christmas tree. And he pretty much freaked out. He looked at me and goes, "Mom, that is so not safe." Who did that? And I said, well, back then, they didn't have, little twinkle lights to put on your Christmas trees. And he said, yeah, but I just couldn't light all those candles, Mom. That's just like a bonfire waiting to happen. So it really, even the light bulb changed our customs, how we celebrate our holidays, how we celebrate our religious holidays, our festivals, our community holidays, everything. The light bulb has changed society so much. It was a technology that drove society and moved it and evolved it. And while the light bulb didn't change the way we communicate, it actually led to the idea of, we had actual electrical substations that were built and other things that came from electricity. All of that then evolved to communication. In the past, we used to write letters, and once we started to have electricity and we started to actually have the phone, and yeah, I'm jumping a lot in the evolution of communication, but we don't have a whole day to talk about how we went from, the letter to the cell phone. But anyway, electricity and the light bulb actually evolved our way of communicating through, it once was the telegraph, now then it became the telephone, now it's our cell phone. And phones have become more than our communication devices. And actually up here in Ireland, I see more phone booths than I do in the United States. In the United States, the phone booths are basically going the way of the dodo. You don't see a lot of them anymore. More people are running around with their mobiles, and they have them in their hand. And boy, do we love our technology. We have everything on these things. And actually this is not me, but my husband would say it probably is me, because I sleep with my cell phone. Actually, I have it up here too, but that's because I want to know what time it is. But usually I sleep with my cell phone right next to my bed, because I have to know everything, and it's right here, and he calls it my precious. Yeah. But our cell phones have become more than our communication devices. They're way more than a phone. They are now our personal PCs. Because nowadays, we actually, back in October 2016, society has eclipsed accessing the internet from a desktop to a mobile phone. So the mobile phones, actually 51% of the people are using the internet from a mobile phone. 48% are using the desktop. Why is this important? For a whole lot of reasons, but think about who is accessing your library. They're going away from the desktop. They're going away from the laptop. They're doing it on these devices. Now, this is also tablet. This says tablet, so they're also using a tablet. But if you think about it, the tablets and the phones display things totally different on your computers. They also don't always have the same, movie technology, sound capabilities. JavaScript is very wonky in general. All of those kind of things. They're slowly moving away from accessing your website and your resources. So it's not just your website. It is all of the resources you buy and pay for. They are moving away from accessing it on the desktop. They are on the mobile and tablet. And that's because everything we got is on our mobile devices. And I say everything, our maps. How many of us still travel around with a map, actual physical paper map in the car? Raise your hand. Still quite a lot, okay. I don't. I have this little guy, and now you know why he's my precious. Everywhere I go. In fact, if I'm alone and not with somebody and I need to find out where I'm going, I plug in my earbuds and put Google Maps on, and it will tell me, turn left here, turn right here. That way I'm not looking at my phone looking like I don't know where I'm going. Banking online. My son, this is a total coincidence. My son last year, before I was asked to be the speaker here, was given a permission slip to go to the UK and for his school trip. And it's one of the only permission slips he gave to me on time. But he came to me and said, Mom, can I say, please don't say no, please don't say no. I said, buddy, I think we're going to do this. Yeah, I agree. So he's actually here I think he's in Shannon right now, in Ireland, while I'm here. I'm able to track how much he's spending. He knows this too. He's only 14, so it was a real big eye-opener for him to get a credit card linked to a bank account, because at 14 that was just a little bit early for us, but at the same time, what do you do when you come to another foreign country and you're 14 and you're part of a school group? How do you pay for things? How do you get souvenirs? So we kind of did that, and I can track everything he's doing. I'm a little bit of a stalker on that. But your television, your news, everything is on here. When there are news reports, it hits Twitter first. It hits the social media sometimes before it hits the actual news media. I can download all of my movies, my actual TV at home if I'm recording my favorite shows. I can actually view it here. Music and radio are all on here. I don't have any CDs anymore. They're all on here. So our phones have become our actual computers. They can pretty much, I can't think of almost any home device or thing that you use, and they pretty much can do it. They can't do the dishes, they can't cook, but you know what? They're almost there probably. And once they are, I'll even get that phone too. And it's because the emergence leads to evolution. And here we have an example of the emergence of the written word. And it's like on the little stone tablets, and it goes to the scroll, and it goes to probably a nice little leather-bound journal that has calligraphy, and it's beautiful. And then we have, I don't know what's the difference between these two other books, but there's something that's a little bit different. Then it goes to an e-reader, and then it goes to the iPad. The emergence of something, whatever it is, what type of technology. Back in, a long time ago when they were using stone tablets to write, that was technology. That also changed the way society communicated and changed the way society is. They were writing down information. So the emergence of a technology. We don't think of writing as a technology. Back then, it was. And it emerged to become the iPad. It changed, it changed everything. And here we have an example of sort of how the storytelling, and this gives another example of the emergence and the evolution of technology. We have storytelling, it goes from oral to written, it goes to the clay tablet, not that iPhone tablet. It goes to plays, scrolls, radio and film, and then it keeps going up to where it's the blog, it's Twitter, it's email, it's an enhanced book. So you see how storytelling even evolved. It has evolved in so many ways. It's like this multifaceted communication bush. So healthcare has changed a little bit. I don't think we're offering cocaine anymore for toothaches. Are we? So as healthcare changes, and healthcare also has changed policy-wise, but technologically also. Technology has influenced healthcare, society has influenced healthcare, policies have influenced healthcare, our own being has influenced healthcare. We're living longer. So the fact that we are living longer and doing more things has influenced the way healthcare has changed. And here are some of the disruptive healthcare things. And like I said, disruptive is not good or bad. It just is disruptive to the current way we are doing things. And one of them is the way that big data. We're taking large chunks of data and analyzing for information and trends and research and storage and retrieval. We're looking to reproduce studies to actually validate those studies or also build upon those studies. And you talked about that a lot when you were discussing the librarians that you work with. And like Aoife said, really thank you for, that's wonderful praise about the support of the librarians you have with your group. Budgets. I don't know anybody in a library that has a rising budget. All of our budgets are changing, and they don't seem to be changing for the positive. Quite frankly, we get giddy if our budgets stay flat. Budgets are always changing. Institutions are demanding more accountability with our money. Institutions, governments, anybody who is the entity that gives libraries money, they're asking for more accountability. And it's not that librarians were spendthrifts. I don't think any one of us has been a spendthrift. I think that because our resources are so expensive, we are asked to be more accountable and justify the usage of those resources to prove their benefit. We inherently know the benefits of the information. Unfortunately, we live in a society where Wikipedia, Google, all of these other things are out there, and administrators, the public, everybody like that have access to that. And that's not always a bad thing, but it also doesn't help explain why our resources are so expensive, why we need these resources to do our job, to help with healthcare, to help our doctors, to help the public and community health information. Those are we have to actually, we're asked for to be more accountable, and because those resources are so expensive, we have to do a better job of showing how those resources impact our caregivers, our populations, how that can help them. We are also faced with a whole health kind of thing, and you have the patient in the center. It used to be the patient, went in, was treated, and they were told to follow up with their doctor in the morning or the next day or that kind of thing. We're looking at a whole health person coordination of care. For example, you have somebody who comes into the emergency with heart attack symptoms. They're treated, they're told to go and and let's say they didn't have a heart attack, or let's say they did, whatever the outcome is. They are asked to do follow-up. Upon discharge, they're told to follow up with their doctor. Now, if they're elderly, can they drive to get to their doctor? Do they have access to public transportation to even get to their doctor? Are they on a limited income? Does going to their doctor and paying for the visit or for the drugs that they must take or paying for the transportation to get to the doctor, does that inhibit them from going to see the follow-up visit? Do they understand directions? You can have somebody who has a PhD in physics and does not understand what a doctor is telling them for their medical condition. My father was an engineer, and he was an electrical and aerospace engineer. He had a congenital heart defect. He wasn't supposed to live past 3. He lived to 65. We were very lucky and so happy to have him he's my dad, so it was really good. They lived that long. He married my mom, a nurse, and towards the end of his health, when he was in the second stages of heart failure, not health failure, probably the same thing, he took my mom to all of his appointments because my mom could speak medicalese. She could also understand my dad. My dad didn't have problem understanding things, but she could tell by his looks and by his demeanor when he understood something, when he was getting frustrated with something. She understood and would ask for clarification. She understood and would know the pills that he was on. And he's an engineer. He was not dumb. He was completely literate. but he was not health literate. And so when you have people who, all stages of their education, upon discharge, do they understand the necessity to go back to the doctor? Do they understand the directions that the doctor is giving them, the nurse that is giving them? Do they understand these things? My husband, I love him. When we were earlier in our marriage, his mom is even a nurse. He went to the doctor, and it was for something very simple. I think it was like strep throat. And the doctor gave him some antibiotics, and he started feeling better. And he stopped taking the medicine. And me and my mother-in-law started scolding him. We're like, you can't do that. You have to see the medicine all the way through. Those are the kinds of things that we are talking about when we have, do they understand the directions? Also, life events get into the schedule and get into the way of your health care. I have 3 children, 14, 10, and 6. If it's not on the Google Calendar, it doesn't exist. We are running around for everything, whether it's a school event, whether it's a sporting event, whether it is my own work, my husband's work, family obligations. We're everywhere. So whether the person, when they're discharged, understands well enough they have to get to the doctor to follow up, can they even fit it into their schedule? Do you have people who can't get a day off of work to go to the doctor? You have people who have to get their children to school, but so they can't do early morning appointments, and all of the early morning appointments are booked out for 6 months. So those are the kinds of things that we are faced with. And when we're talking whole health, we're switching around to try and break down those barriers to getting health of the whole person, the whole society, the whole community. And so you see this wheel here, and it's a community of care. You have all of these people who are working to try and help that patient with whatever disease or condition they have. So that has been a switch. It's a slow switch. Whenever you're trying to change the way people do things, try to integrate into their daily lives, it will take time, but that is the way we're leaning. And then it sounds kind of silly to say with change, the message always changes, but it does. Our administration, our government, our our curriculums, a lot of times the messages are like written in the sand and the beach. It is what it is until the next wave of change comes along and wipes it out, and we have a new message. So all of our directives, our messages, can also be changing. And that can be very frustrating because one year you are operating under one way that the administration wants you to do things. The next year, because of whether it's a change in government, whether it's a change in economics, whether it's a change in the CEO that happens to now run your institution, the message changes. And we have to be adaptable to whatever that new message has changed. And sometimes the messages can be conflicting. You're asked to provide quality care, and the resources keep getting more and more expensive, but yet but your institution wants you to cut 5% for your budget. How do you buy resources that keep increasing by 10%, but yet your overall budget has dropped by 5%? That's a conflicting message. So we have to try and balance those conflicting messages and try and get the best we can out of things. And then you saw this slide already. Is this a 10-year trend? The clinical key did this at MLA last year. Personalized medicine, for example, cancer. Nowadays, they look at the genotype of your cancer and they determine A, whether it even needs chemotherapy. B, if it needs chemotherapy, what specific type of chemotherapy. So not all cancer is now treated the exact same way. It's now personalized to each individual who has it. We have health information technology for patient data. Basically, think of it as the, and not everybody has the electronic medical record, but if you have the electronic medical record, it's the info button in your electronic medical record. So doctors can provide patient information based on the disease or the conditions that is in that patient's record. We also have wellness programs that improve the health and reduce medical costs. Smoking cessation programs, weight loss programs, get active, get fit programs. There's now, I mean, I just saw somewhere where they're hosting yoga. I want to say here, but it was, I don't know, it was in my many, many walks all across the city. All of these kind of things. I don't remember places hosting yoga, like drop-in yoga and that kind of thing. Then there's the value-conscious patients and consumers. This is not just patients. This is your institutions. This is your government. As Aoife mentioned, the government is looking at the value of the health care. And they're looking and they're shopping around for the best value, the best bang for the buck. So all of these things, while our governments are all a little bit different, because we have a lot of people here from different countries, these are the global kind of trends that are happening. And this is, while we're all sort of on the same global trend, we might be approaching it from a different perspective of each government. These are the things that are happening as a whole. So what do we do? Well, we could hide. But I really don't recommend that option. We could freak out. And quite honestly, you know what? It's okay if you take a day or two to do both. We're human. I mean, when some of the big things, if a very large vendor comes down and drops a 400% increase in your resources, you're gonna freak out. You're not a robot. You've gotta, you know, process that through. You may go down to the pub or go home and get a few beers and, you know, have a moment to yourself. But those are the kinds of things, I mean, as long as you don't get trapped in hiding or freaking out. And I fear that some people do. I think there's always a set of the population, regardless of whether they're librarians, police officers, teachers, whoever it is, there's always some set of the population, whenever there's changes, that always that will hide, that will freak out, but they don't get to work. They get trapped in their cycle of hiding or freaking out, and it becomes very never-ending and almost self-serving cycle of freaking out. But if you take that time and you have a couple of days of your freak out, but then you settle down, you get back to work, that is what you need to do. You need to sit and see how the changes are impacting your library, your information, your people, your resources, and you got to get down and get to work. So one of the ways we need to think about that is disruptive, while I keep saying it's not bad or good, it always gives people a bad connotation, a bad idea of what's happening. Nobody likes to hear the word disruptive. So let's start thinking of them as opportunistic changes. The light bulb was an opportunity. It actually allowed us to really go forth and do a lot of really cool things. I mean, also, we don't have our Christmas trees catching on fire. So those are a lot, think of it as an opportunistic changes, these things that we are having. And here are some of the, when I give speeches and I listen to speeches and people talk about what we need to do, I always get frustrated when they never give me examples of what people are doing. So I have a bunch of examples of what people are doing who have taken these disruptive changes and made them opportunistic changes. These are just examples. Some of them are very complex examples. Some of them are very simple examples. It depends upon your library whether any of these examples will work for you. I listed the people that I found who are doing them. I did not give tons of information because you all are librarians, so you can just Google that person and their institution and contact them for more in-depth information. so we don't have to have a slide of everything that Carrie has done for the health systems in Pittsburgh. But actually, Carrie, she created a service for molecular and life science research. She does education outreach, licensing, and does consults. And she has a web portal for the bioinformatics people. She's worked with partners to support and prepare a new staff program that leverages personal data clouds to promote an individualized care and identify diseases in the preclinical stage. And that's Isaac Huffman in precision medicine. That's actually what he's doing. He's doing the preparing the new staff for precision medicine. They're working with personal data. They're integrating information in and identifying disease in preclinical information. Alejandra, she's integrating informatics into literature into the bioinformatics course. So here she's actually with the curriculum team and integrating informatics information into the bioinformatics course, and joined with a healthcare team to teach strategies and tools on health literacy for bioinformatics. So all of these people are doing different things. And this is just from a data standpoint and a bioinformatics standpoint. And as you'll see with more examples, some of these people, or their examples, fit in a lot of different categories. I just chose one, so if you think, well, this person's more embedded or something like that, sure, they could be more embedded. I just put them in another category. And it's more than just data. So, for example, Katie Jefferson, she is actually community medical. There's community medical schools. She is actually providing services specifically to the community faculty of these medical schools. These community faculty they're not based in the academic medical center. So they have, they feel like they're disconnected from the actual academic resources and academic library. And she is helping to provide faculty access, the faculty out in the community, access to these resources. And it's actually led to helping faculty create lectures. She's actually helping them create lectures as well. So she had found a need within her institution of community doctors who aren't able to get access or have difficulty or have trouble like intellectually connecting with the library resources, and she is helping to connect them. You would think this is a little odd, but poster printing. Ryan is doing poster printing, and it's actually, they use the innovative space or like a maker space, and they print off posters for the students and the group. 69% of the posters are printed for conferences, and it's more than just the School of Medicine. It's nursing and pharmacy. So they're bringing in people to the library just because, you know, they can print a poster for their conferences. This is not necessarily something that people think the library does, is printing posters, but it doesn't matter. It means that the people are using the library and realize that the library can help them in their job or in their academic pursuit. We also have a virtual library in Nigeria. What happened was the library was completely demoed because they were going to renovate it. And they had no library. And what they did was they completely embedded their services to offices and classrooms and brought in a completely virtual library to all of those people in their institution while the new library was being built. So they, instead of shutting down, instead of having people come to them, they took the library and put it in people's offices. And then you have our research connectors. Christy Holmes and her group at Northwestern, they actually create an NIH biosketch of researchers, which communicates the impact of those researchers' research. Basically, they continue, a lot of the grants that they apply for are asking for a biosketch on the impact of their previous research, how well it was received, who used it, is it making an impact in later on? And she and her group continue to create these biosketches for their people as more grants want biosketch-like information on the applicants. Megan von Eisenberg in Duke is doing similar things, only she's using it with Web of Science, Scopus, and Google. So there's all sorts of ways. They're actually taking, all of these researchers are using library resources to create their articles, to do their research. What the libraries are now doing is saying this output and measuring the output of that research, whether it's an article or however it is, they are measuring the impact of that output. So they are measuring how, in a sense, they're illustrating how their support led to impactful research. It also can be institutional repositories. Leanna is doing an institutional repository showing how basically collecting everything that their institution produces. And from what I could tell, it tended to be more article, paper, poster, presentation kind of driven. But it allows them to have access, full text access, allows them to actually keep the faculty profiles more relevant and fresh. Old data was under the faculty profiles. It aids in discoverability of the institutional research. Your libraries are actually aiding in the institutional research. So don't you want your people to be able to come back and see how that research was used and created more research, like a little circle of life? Lynn and Fredrickson, she's actually working in Michigan with a data repository. We've been talking about open data, and the data repository, it's for sharing of data for people and working towards open access of data. So instead of necessarily the written word repository, this is a data repository. Building resources, and I don't mean the physical actual building, I mean actually construction of resources. Let's see, Michael Kronfeld, he actually created a clinical app of library resources to be used at the point of care for evidence-based healthcare and rapid access. He didn't want it to have, so many times when you're using these online resources on your phone, you have to constantly log in. You have to, okay, I'm in this database, okay, I found some stuff or I didn't find stuff. Now let me hop on to the next one. Oh, I gotta log in again. I gotta log in again. He actually created a app that doesn't require constant logging in so that caregivers can actually access the evidence-based resources to provide evidence-based healthcare at the point of care. At my own institution, we're embedding subject-specific lab guides, or LibGuides as some people call them, into the electronic medical record. So not every specialty yet, but each specialty will have a dedicated page from the library of all of the resources and our institution's care path plans on the LibGuide, and it's linked to within the electronic medical record. We're also working with IT and some of our doctors to create a little like URL, a persistent URL, so when they click on that link, they can embed that care plan and make it a preferred resource in their electronic medical record when they log in. When they log in, it knows who they are and it gives it in their way that they like to see the resources or things displayed. And so we're working on that. Let's see, the patient education. So Dana, she actually developed and licensed consumer health information programming, and she's running it on the hospital's cable system. You know, so when you're in the hospital and you've got the TV and there's channels and you could watch a movie, or they have consumer health information about various things. I know when I had my children a long time ago, you could flip around and you could get maternity information on breastfeeding and other things on the TV. She actually licensed and developed that consumer health information to run on the hospital's TVs via HD. She replaced the old videotape system. So things that you wouldn't think that the library would be responsible for, she actually found an opportunity to go out and support the institution from a different perspective. Now, in my institution, space is a 4-letter word. Everybody wants it, and there's a lot of swearing when people are trying to get space or losing space. But the thing is, we need to stop thinking of our space as ours. We need to figure out a way that the space is everyone's. And Kim and MJ have maker spaces, and there are other, and MJ is here, so she can tell you about her maker space. But their maker spaces, they foster innovation. They bring people into the library to do the research, to create. That's what we're trying to do. You don't want people to come into the library and then leave to create, because what if they have questions? Then they have to come back into the library, or they have to log back into the library. If they're in the library with tools that they need to create, then it's like a one-stop shop of creation. They have some of these maker spaces, not all, but some of them have access to some of the statistics programs that they need. They also, a lot of them have 3D printing, so that you can have people coming in and creating the model of a DNA or a mouse model or whatever floats their boat for 3D things for innovation. Huddle space. So in the United States, they're talking about doing huddles in hospitals before they do complicated procedures or before they do rounding. And huddles is where they kind of go off into a quiet area, discuss what's happening, make sure everybody's on plan, make sure if it's like, for example, a surgery, make sure they're operating on the correct leg and not the wrong leg. Really making everybody sure they're all on the same plan, medically, surgically, however it is. But they all take a timeout, so to speak, and they go to a huddle area. Well, in Virginia, they gave up part of an unused library space. That is totally unheard of. Giving up, well, first of all, you have library space that's unused. Second of all, that you're willing to give it up. But the reason they gave it up is it serves as the official huddle space for administration and clinicians to go for quick information exchanges. And it has little breakout areas. So people are actually, because they gave up that space, more people are coming into that space, and they'll be able to access the library resources while they're having a huddle if they have a question. They're actually coming in to the space. So by giving up that space, they got more people involved in the library. And it also drove institutional awareness, showed the library as part of a team player within the institution, and supported a key institutional initiative by having these huddle spaces. Collaboration space. This is similar to makerspace, but it's more of a collaboration. It's a space for data and technology tools. They have data walls. I don't know what those are, but they sound pretty cool. To share data with groups, they have it reserved for virtual reality and 3D modeling. And it's easy, and what Emily mentioned, it's easier to keep researchers than to recruit them. So if your institution is able to keep a researcher, it's far easier than recruiting a new one. And they feel that this collaboration space helps to keep their researchers. Now, we've talked a little bit about embedded librarians and clinical rounds and liaisons. We got clinical librarians' impact on patient rounds. Deb Warner, Julia Esparza, they both have done a lot with clinical rounding on the actually inpatient rounds. Deb actually is going on patient rounds, and she's looking at publishing a study assessing the impact on library rounds to the actual caregivers, the residents, and the medical students. So the impact of the librarian on the team. But you also have liaison librarians. In Taiwan, the instructor, they did a needs assessment to see what areas that they wanted to have more embedded librarians in, there was a need for librarians. And what they did was they had embedded these librarians, had these librarians as liaisons to different departments based off of their needs assessment. And it actually increased their instructor participation. It actually rose to 90%. So instructors and medical staff actually became more engaged in the library. And this is really interesting. Some of the instructors and medical staff are so involved and so connected with the library that they actually help fundraise for the library. Not everybody can be involved in the curriculum. Some institutions, even, what one institution does in the same country is different from another institution. Some institutions don't allow librarians to have as much involvement in the curriculum. Here are some examples that can have super involvement to one for very easy involvement. For example, the evidence-based practice undergraduate clinical program, Mary Simons, I'm hoping it's Simons and not Simmons, but if it's Simons or Simmons, they created online virtual games to reinforce the EBP understanding. So the students use these games, and it's actually kind of neat. It works with them to it takes them, and they have to use evidence-based practice to actually get through and win the game. In Australia, Madeline, they actually have librarians as simulated patients. They are in the curriculum, and they are simulated patients. And the students actually come to them and go through various scenarios. And she was saying that, I met her at MLA, and she was saying that it has increased the use of the library and the library resources, that the students actually come back before exams and talk to them and really actually study with them as patients again. So I don't want to say they check out the librarian, but they check out the librarian as a patient. And they actually use them in the librarians are trained in part of the simulation. In Taiwan, they actually worked with, what they did was they worked with the curriculum providers, and they aren't able to influence the curriculum or be like a part of the curriculum, like you would say a simulated patient, or actually have embedded their library classes into the curriculum. But what they did was they created a one-stop shop, basically, a web page for all of the curriculum paths that includes syllabus, the teaching materials, and the library resources, so that the students actually only had one place to go for all of that information that they needed for their education. So if you don't even have the ability to influence the curriculum, you can still be a part of the curriculum and help students access the information and make it easy. Outreach. So, for example, this is a new medical school or new medical library. In new medical libraries, you're worried about staffing, you're worried about budget. They made outreach a priority for their right away when they became a new medical library. They actually participate in community health fairs, they actually participate in youth programs, and they provide health information needs to the homeless. So they actually made it a part of their mission going forward when they were first established to really do more outreach. And the wellness to go, that is kind of interesting. Barbara Platts, she actually puts wellness information, health information resources that are for various diseases and conditions that are usually in that community in a resource bag, and she gives that to patients. And then And then this one I really like is they partner, this Ying Ting Zhang, she partnered with public libraries. They did a community health needs assessment and worked together to provide health information to the community. They leveraged staff knowledge and resources to improve community health, access to consumer health information. Basically, the health libraries train the public librarians to help with the health information because the community doesn't always go to a medical library. They don't always go to the health information or hospital library. They go to the public library and look it up. And a lot of times public librarians are woefully understaffed and unknowledgeable about the health information that's available. When I was growing up and went to library school, they basically, before I got into my medical library training track, they basically said two things you never answer as a public librarian: health questions and tax questions. So you have a whole generation or more of public librarians, at least in the United States, who are pretty much told this kind of thing. You don't answer health questions, you don't answer tax questions. Now you've got all these changes within the government and healthcare, and what are your public doing? Going to the public libraries and looking up health information. And they're going to the public librarian for information on assessing that health information. So what they did was they worked with public libraries to arm these public librarians with health information knowledge and skills and tools so they can help the community. But you can do internal outreach. This is really cool. Megan actually, she provides iPads to inpatients. So when a patient comes into the hospital, she provides them with, she does rounds, and she provides them with an iPad that has a consumer health information webpage on it. And when she's rounding, she shows the patients how to use the iPad, and then she also shows them how to find more information, and then she tells them, I'm here for you. So if you have questions and you need more information and you can't find it or you have other things, let me know and I will find it for you. And Carolyn DeBrun, I hope I said that right, she's here. She is always in health information and literacy. That is her big thing, connecting the health population to the community population to health information. That's one of the things she's doing, internal outreach. I say internal outreach because she's part of the Public Health of England, so she's pretty much all of the public health, so that's her internal group. This one is a really simple technique, but it seems to, it's so simple that why not? Lunching librarian. This librarian, Ricardo, he actually has office hours in the doctor's lounge of anesthesiology. It actually provides a face and a name of the library and awareness of resources. So a lot of these things, if you don't have iPads, you can still do a, lunching librarian in the doctor's lounge. You don't have to have a mega budget to provide iPads. You don't have to have a mega budget to be somebody who can program and create a very app. Look at how your library is. Look at the skills of your library staff, or you, if you're the only librarian, and find something that reaches out to and resonates with your institution. Now, we can't do all of, sorry, I better stand up here. We can't do all of this and our jobs and do outreach and all of this and. We're humans, we're not robots. So there are some things that we need to give up. We need to rethink the sacred cows of librarianship. We need to put a couple of cows on the grill and make some burgers. We need to rethink, if we are doing things as a librarian because we've always done them because that's what we learned in library school, then we really need to change what we're doing. We need to free up our time, free up our location to do the things that are needed for the future, for the changes. So what might be a sacred cow in one institution might not be a sacred cow in another. It depends upon your library. For example, when I was a community librarian in a small hospital and I was the only librarian, And this was, let's see, it was only 10 years ago. We didn't have a card, we had a card catalog, you know. We didn't have an online catalog. I was tasked to getting the library completely online. I probably now thinking back, thinking back, I probably, if it was now, may not have even tried to get an online catalog. Why? I had 4 shelves of books. Nobody looked at the catalog except for me. It was an aid for me, not an aid for my users. The users came in and looked at the shelf, or the users came in and asked me. They never touched the catalog. Why was I cataloging? And I'm a bad cataloger. I mean, I would do a lot of copy cataloging, and I would then go and shelve it, and I'd notice that the other edition's like over here. And then I'd be like, oh, do I weed this, or do I change the call number? Why? Why are we doing those kind of things that are keeping us, that are not helping our users, that are actually either helping us or hindering us? We need to look at, why are we reporting on circulation statistics? What does it tell administration if we told them that 1,000 books were checked out in a month? So, are we the public library that needs to worry about book circulation? What does 1,000 books tell you? Yes, people are reading. Does it tell you how we helped change healthcare? How we helped those doctors change their treatment patterns? Does it tell you how we helped the nurses come up with a care plan? No, it just tells you people read a lot of books. Why are we reporting specifically just on the numbers of literature searches we are doing and giving it to administration? Administration doesn't understand that whether I did 1,000 searches in a month, which is highly unlikely, but that doesn't mean anything to them. Why are they paying a librarian to do searches on the literature and when their doctors can go to Google? We have not made the connection between my literature searches improving healthcare or improving treatment decisions or improving research. That's what institutions want to know. They don't want to know that you did 100 searches or 200 searches. To them, that's just, okay, you're a Google. What are we doing that needs to be changed and rethought? Why are we staffing a reference desk? Is it to answer all the questions about where the bathroom is? We need to think about how we are providing our services, how people are coming to us for information, how we need to come to them for information. Maybe we don't have a reference desk anymore. Maybe we start actually going and talking to the people and having those library luncheons in the doctor staff office. You need to start thinking, and I always say this wrong, you got to be a heretical librarian. You got to think heresy. You got to rethink the way we were taught librarianship. Because when we were taught librarianship, that was a different time. I was taught librarianship over 18 years ago. Nothing I learned back then is being used now. It's all changed. We need to think about how we're getting our money. Do we look at only the one institution that's been paying for our money? How do we get money? That one librarian the librarian, I think it's China or Taiwan, I realize that Taiwan's part of China, but that librarian, because they were providing outreach to those teachers, those instructors, those doctors, now those instructors and doctors are helping fundraise for that library. We need to think about our different revenues and come up with other ways of getting money. Because as you've known, the budget is shrinking. Our budget that we get from our parent organization, whatever it is shrinking. And you know that our resources are all going up in price. Nothing gets cheaper in the library world, nothing. But we need to have that money somewhere. So we need to come up with Nobody taught me in library school how to go and find money. Nobody taught me how to become a fundraiser for the library. That was not in library school. That's something that I need to do now. I need to learn boots on the ground, figure out how I can pay for these resources from a new source of money. Yes, I need to keep my institution and my parent organization money, and yes, it would be really bad if my institution and parent organization, you know, kept cutting the budget. But I need to look for outside sources. And there's always options. We don't like to report on the bad things. So if we tried something and it didn't work, who cares? Take it apart like these little Connects things. This is like a child's toy where you can actually take different pieces and parts and make different things happen. So if the thing we build falls apart, rebuild it using different pieces. It doesn't mean we have to be perfect. We are too focused on having something just perfect before we roll it out. We have to go with it, see if it works, adjust, make adjustments on the fly. And if it doesn't work, you know what? Share your failures. Because what doesn't work for me might work for somebody else. Somebody else might see it and go, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't go down that path. Another person might see it and say, you went down that path when you should have made this turn. And then that actual program or service that I created, where I started to fail, somebody else helped me out and got it so it is a successful program. We need to start sharing our failures more, and we need to look at all of our programs as interconnecting blocks that we can rearrange and add and change as the times come. Because there's a problem. As we said, if we do not evolve with society and changing, we become endangered. There's already things happening in our society, professions and things that are happening that are endangered. The post, mail, a lot of countries, their mail services have changed drastically as a result of different types of shipping, email, all of that kind of stuff. In the United States, our post office is actually endangered. They try different funding models. There's trying different things to keep it going. That's one of the things that we need to look at. We don't want to become endangered. For example, news, photojournalism, the newspaper. Those are all endangered. You have the average citizen walking down the street who has a cell phone that can record anything and take pictures of anything, and they are hitting online news faster than the news trucks can get there. There are very few photojournalists out there because they are buying or just simply taking the average citizen's pictures from the volcano that erupted, from the bomb blast that happened, from the whatever happened. That's what they're doing. The photojournalists, that has changed. And we all know that the print is dying and dead. And I hate to say that to people, but newspapers are going bankrupt. They're all online, and they're getting their stories from bloggers online. They're paying independent writers, so the idea of a journalist is endangered. There's also the people who are extinct, and I don't mean the people, I mean the profession. We no longer have telephone operators to this extent. You can still dial the operator and they can still help you out, but we don't have this vast workforce of telephone operators. And we don't want to be extinct. We want to be librarians that evolve. We want to be librarians that are ones that actually move with the changes, go forward with the changes, change the way that we are doing business so that we are no longer an extinct or an endangered species of job. And I'll leave you with this. We have to keep trying. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. And this is actually my son, Sean. He's my middle kid. He's wrestling, and the reason I chose this picture is because wrestling, you always have to keep trying. It's all about disruptive change. The person who you are wrestling is always trying to change things, and they're always moving, and you have to adapt every single time because they want to get you on the back and they want to win. And you want to get them on the back and you want to win. There is never a quiet moment when you're wrestling or your son is wrestling. That is you're just like this. But it is never a quiet moment. Everything is moving, everything is changing, and you have to adapt constantly. And you can't give up, because as soon as you get the idea, the thought, just a little inkling in your brain that you might give up, that this is too hard, you have lost in wrestling. You have to be always focused on changing and adapting to whoever is throwing the next move at you. And as librarians, we need to wrestle with our jobs. We need to always adapt. We need to look at ways of adapting our technique to adjust to whatever is being thrown on you, because you don't want to be the librarian on his or her back. You want to keep trying. And I wanted to leave that with you, to always keep trying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for a very thought-provoking keynote speech. Michelle has agreed to take a couple of questions from the audience. If anybody would like to have a question for Michelle or any of our speakers actually on the panel. I believe we have a couple of roving mics going around. If anyone feels brave. I mean, I think there were some really good examples from all around the world, Michelle, about, oh, we have a question here at the front.
Hello, thanks very much for a wonderful, wonderful keynote. Janet Harrison, Loughborough University. So if we've got to keep trying, is that going to be a challenge for everybody, or are some people on top already? I mean, you gave some very good examples. Which branch of that innovation do you think might go forward first? Yes.
Is that working?
Do I touch it? What branch? Oh, there we go. Sorry. What branch might go forward? I think it's the branch that actually means the most impact to your institution. As Aoife mentioned, we need to really start aligning ourselves with our institutions and what they value. If we continue if we look at things as what the library values and it's not aligned with the institution, then we're not going to succeed. And perhaps our wrestling isn't a 2-minute match, it's more like a lifetime match. And so our changes may not be that very split second. So at least we won't get completely tired. But we do need to continually change. And there will be people who can't change. And that is unfortunate. But that is the way it is in every profession. It's not just unique to librarians. And actually, it's kind of funny. My husband says I have a dual personality. When in my home, I hate change. I've got 3 children, 14, 10, and 6. I don't want them to grow up. I miss the snuggles. I miss the hugs. The 14-year-old is, a teenager. And teenagers do not give hugs. But yet I've got my 10-year-old and my 6-year-old who give hugs. And I don't want those things to change because I know they're going to be turning 14 and have all that 14-ness. I hate change at home. But for some reason, I love change in libraries. I don't know why. I look at things and I said, let's go try and do it this way. Let's do it that way. That's what and so we might have a split personality like me where we don't always like change. But if we continue to move forward, that's the best way we can go.
Thank you. More questions down the middle?
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for a fascinating presentation. But at one extreme, you offered us a supernova and the prospect of extinction, and on the other, you offered us a light bulb, which was the prospect of invisibility, of not being noticed. I wonder if you have a metaphor that lies somewhere in between that we should aspire to.
Well, it's all about extremes to be interesting. I would say, wow, the light bulb I don't think is invisible. It's invisible as a technology, but when it's gone, we definitely notice it's not gone. I mean, it is gone. It's just the other day, we checked into our hotel room and I couldn't get any of the lights to work. And it wasn't because I was American and I didn't understand Irish light switches. They were all burnt out. So the light bulb was not invisible to me. But I think the other thing that could be not invisible is just be a librarian who's in the forefront and don't be invisible that way. Be somebody who's at the lunches, who's in the elevators, who's going to other people's offices. Be the promoter.
I'd like to make one comment about being a visible librarian. You mentioned about photojournalists and also newspaper disappearing. We all agree with you on that. However, what's important is a lot of fake news, fake science are out there. And being a librarian, the most critical role now is be visible and to make sure that the fake science and fake news are not out there. So you have to be there to prove it, how we can be more proactive and, work together to make sure the fake news are not spreading around. That's all I want to make the comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
Am I on now? Oh. My name's Anne Ritchie. I'm the Health Libraries Australia convener. And I have a question for Dr. Sinclair, please. You talked a lot about librarians' roles in your organisation, and we had two great examples, shining lights amongst our profession. And you also talked about systematic reviews and the roles that librarians play in that. I'm just wondering if you see any opportunities in the future as far as research and librarians being involved in research. We've got quite a few challenges, I'd say, with research data management. But yeah, I'm interested in your kind of opportunities.
That's a very big question. I'm a researcher. I suppose when I started out with research, I would do everything myself. And I think that, you do your own searches, you do your own referencing, you do everything in the old-fashioned way. I think what's happened now is I see the need for more teams, and I think as part of that team, I think an information specialist. You referred to them as librarians, but an information specialist should be part of that team. Should information specialists do research? I do not see any reason why they shouldn't do research. I think that it would be useful for information specialists to perhaps do masters in research methodology. I think it's useful for them to understand where a researcher is coming from in terms of types of methodology, etc. I think they benefit, and a librarian or information specialist would benefit from that. And I see that as that dual role, working. It certainly works in our organization. But then we are able to offer that to our information specialists, the opportunity to do that training. I don't think every organization can do that. And I don't also think that every librarian would want to do that. I think it is a special niche role, but it does work. I have got good case studies of where it actually does work. And I think that's that's to be very optimistic about that. I think it's a good way to go, but it's not for everybody. And really, it's really up to your organisation where you work as to whether or not you want to have librarians move into that space. But I think it's very useful to do so.
I see another hand up.
Hello.
If you could say your name and where you're from.
Lisa from Notley Mental Health Services in Cork. I suppose I really wanted to say that we hear extinction here, and I can hear nearly the fluttering heartbeats. Like, oh, what's happening? When the researchers come to me, and when I call them researchers, these are our nurses, social workers, OTs, and they're doing their bit of research. They come to the library, generally they just contact me by email, because I am the online researcher for them, online librarian. They say, oh, thank God you're here, because there's too much out there. And I suppose we encourage research from the nurses and from the doctors. They are not researchers, but they need help, and we want them to do a bit of research. So I suppose us as a librarian, we're there to enable them, to help them out, give them a bit of guidance. And I think we're very needed. And I think that we're getting more and more appreciation for what we do. In some aspects, when I started in the ward, people looked at, oh, why didn't we get another nurse? We got a librarian. But I think now people are really seeing that we are necessary. Librarians we are necessary. We expect our professionals to do their continuing professional education, to do a bit of research, but they are not researchers. Nurses are not researchers. Doctors are not researchers. So I think it's a really important link, and I'm not afraid of extinction. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Lise. Lise works as an embedded librarian and is a very interesting person to talk to if you get a chance. I think we're going to finish up on the questions now. I don't see any more hands up, and I'm supposed to make some announcements. So the first one is, and thank you all to our speakers this morning. By the way, perhaps we could have a round of applause.